Hey everybody, so this is going to be the video over the second part of balance for module 15. So I'm going to switch over now and get started. Um, so anyways, all that's going on here is some balance tests. I'm going to go through a few of these, but not all of them. So first one is just a timed up and go test. I'm going to walk through it real quick. You just have the patient start with their back against, sitting in a chair with their back fully against the chair, making sure that they're not forward on it, any forward on it. And you walk out 10 feet from there and you set like a cone on the ground. And then you have them on go, stand up and try and walk as safely as they can down around that cone, turn, return to the chair, and then sit back down. And they can use an assistive device if they need to, but you want to try and, if possible, have them not use it. If they use the assistive device, make sure the next time you test them with the assistive device as well, so you get consistency. Have them walk at a normal pace. They're not at a normal pace. Sorry, they're not trying to rush, and they just turn around and sit down. If it takes them, dang it, what happened? Anyways, that stinks. So if it takes them longer than 10 seconds or less than 10 seconds, sorry, they are freely mobile. That means that they're going to be pretty safe to walk around the community. Right? If they're older and they do it in less than 12 seconds, you can give them that same score. If it's anything greater than 20 seconds, it's a good sign that they may need an assistive device, a cane or a walker or something. Greater than 30 seconds means that they are what's called dependent, which means they're going to need a wheelchair or they're going to need somebody with them at all times. So this is just a quick way to assess general ambulatory balance. So I'm going to switch again and I'm just going to show you real quick what that looks like. So here's my cone, right? Here's my chair. I'm going to step out 10 feet or so and set that down. And now I just sit in the chair, and when the therapist says go, I stand up, I walk, go around the cone, I walk back, and I sit down. And as soon as I sit down, the time stops. And as soon as you say go, the time starts. And anything, like I said, less than 12 seconds for an older person or 10 seconds for anybody below like 60 is considered like normal and safe gait, safe balance activity. Safe overall balance, sorry. And then 20 seconds or more is going to be like they need some help, an assistive device of some kind. And then finally, greater than 30 seconds means they need a wheelchair or they need help until they can get back on their feet. So switching back, then the next one is called Romberg. Romberg is a super easy, quick test. This is one of the oldest ones done. You don't see it used very much anymore at all, just to be perfectly honest. But it is a decent quick test. And so one of the things you guys need to know is that there are quick tests for balance, or quick versions of tests for balance, just to kind of get that quick assessment like you would do with the muscles. Romberg's a good, pretty good quick assessment. So you have the person stand with their feet as close together as possible. You're standing right beside them, and behind them either or to the side, right by them, where you can grab them if you need to. And then you have them try and maintain balance with their feet right together for as long as they can. If they can do it for at least 30 seconds, then their balance is considered good or decent at least. And then you have them do the same test again, but with their eyes closed. So this one only takes a minute total, right? I'm not going to walk through this one because I know you guys are smart enough to get this. It's really straightforward. So have them do it both ways, and if they're able to do it with both their eyes closed and with their eyes open without any real movement, like if they're starting to sway and stuff, especially once they close their eyes, or even before then, if you have them put their feet together and they can't keep from rocking around, they don't have good balance. They need to be kind of rock steady and solid. Um, Functional reach test, this is one that is used a lot. And so what they do is they have the patient stand right to next to a wall, and I'll demonstrate this one um, because it's good. So, but with their fist closed and 90 degrees of elbow flexion, and the examiner then has them reach as far as they can forward without taking a step, right? And then the further they can reach is a good sign of how good their balance is. Because remember, balance is how well you can keep your stability when you reach out, when the center of mass gets outside of that base of support, right? And so if you can challenge that center of mass and make it further away by having somebody lean, then you'll know. And so I'll show you. You do see this one a lot. Functional reach test is used a lot by PTs. This tells you what normal is for a man that's 20 to 40, a man that's 41 to 69. So you just need this list if you're going to do this one at any point. And for women, it's a little bit less. Um, so just kind of know those numbers. So I'm going to show you kind of real quick what that looks like, if I can. So I'm going to try and figure out how to do this here. So, oops. So, okay, this will work. So what you do is, and the way I saw PTs do it is that they would put like a ruler, actually, they would tape a ruler to just a wall or a doorway here. And then you have the person stand not like right at the door, but kind of next to it with their hand out, shoulder at 90 degrees of flexion, um, fist closed, and then you just lean forward as far as you can without having to take a step. At the point where they have to take a step, so for me, it's right about there. And then you could read on that ruler how far they were able to lean. And it gives you a generally decent idea of how good their balance is. You want to make sure that when you do the measurement, it's at this third metacarpal, because it's the part that sticks out the most. So that's kind of obvious, but that's a really quick and good test that they still use quite a bit. The next one is Tenetti. Tenetti is super easy and quick. They have actually decided that it's not a very good test, though. Like, it just doesn't give a very good, very accurate measurement. And so you're starting to see people move away from this, although it used to be super common, and you will still see it some. So what Tenetti is it's actually broken into two parts. There's a balance part and there's a walking part. You can do just the balance part as a quick assessment, and I'll show you that here in a second. So this is how it works. Sitting balance. So you just come in, you have that patient sitting in a chair, and if that patient sits very steady and safe in a chair without having to lean or slide or using their hands obviously to hold them up, then they get a 1 point, right? If they have to lean or they're working hard to hold themselves up, they're swaying around, you give them a 0. Then you have the patient stand up, and if they're able to stand up without help, then they get 0, okay? If they have to use the arms of the chair or use their arms in any way to help push up, like if they have to push up against their legs or against their knees with their arms, then they get 1 point. If they're able to stand up without using their arms, then they get 2 points. Then moving on, if as they're trying to arise, they need help, then they get 0 points for that. If they're able but requires more than one attempt, so if they start to try and get up and they can't on their own, that's a point. But as long as they're able to eventually get up, it's still a point. So if they have to try 2 or 3 times to get up, they still get a point. If they're able to rise in one attempt with no problems, they get 2 points. So immediate standing balance, if they stand up and their balance is unsteady and they're starting to kind of move, and you see that cone of sway that we talked about, that postural sway. If they start to have postural sway, um, then you know that they get a 0 here. If they're steady, but they have to use a walker or something like that for support, like they have to reach out and touch something, or they have to reach out and grab their walker, then it's a point. If they have to, if they're steady and they stand up well and there's no problem and they can do that without a walker or any other type of help or support, then they get 2 points. And then you, if once they're standing for a little bit, so this is immediate standing balance, the next is just regular standing balance. If they're unsteady after like 20 or 30 seconds, then that's a 0. If they've been standing for 20 or 30 seconds and they're steady, but they have a wide stance, so the medial part of their heels is more than 4 inches apart, they have a really broad base of support to help them, then they're a 1. Or if they use a cane or other support, they're a 1. If they are able to stand and stand with a normal narrow stance with less than 4 inches between the medial portion of their heels, then they get a 2. Then you rudely kind of push the person, actually just a gentle nudge, right, um, on their sternum. You can do their shoulder or something too, especially for ladies. You want to be careful kind of getting in between their breasts and trying to touch sternum, and so I've always just touched shoulder, just so you know. But if you touch them and they start to fall, they get 0 points for that. Then if they stagger and have to grab for something, or they have to step to catch themselves, they get a 1. If you can push them and they don't go really, I mean, they'll move a little bit, but they can steady themselves, then they're a 2. Then you have them stand after that with their eyes closed. If they're steady with their eyes closed, they get a 1. If they're unsteady with their eyes closed, they get 0. And then you have them turn around 360 degrees. If they're able to do it just with easy continuous steps, they get a 1. They get a 1. If they have to kind of like stop for a second, or their steps are kind of weird and clunky and you can tell they're struggling with it, they're a 0. If they're steady as they do it, they get a 1. If they're unsteady, then they get a 0. And then finally you watch them sit down, right? And as they sit down, you watch if they're able to sit safely with no problems, they can tell where they are getting close enough to the chair and sitting down properly, then they get 2 points. If they have to use their arms, or it's really herky-jerky and kind of weird as they sit down, but they're still able to sit down, they get a 1. If they're not safe, they can't tell how far they are from the chair, or if they kind of really flop down hard into the chair, they get a 0. And then you add up all those points. 16 of 16 is really good. And the further down you go, the worse they are. And there's actually a grading scale down here. Yes. So so for the balance score, there's a separate grading scale, and then you do gait as well. It's pretty straightforward stuff. I'm not going to go through all of it, but I do want to show you real quick is that you can do a quick assessment version of Tinetti that literally takes like 30 seconds or a minute. So I pretend I'm the patient, right? I'm going to turn this down a little bit. Okay. You watch me, you come up, you see me sitting here, and you notice that I'm not having any problem sitting here, right? I'm not using my hands. I'm able to sit up nice and tall and straight, no problem. So that's a point, right? So the next thing you do is you have me stand up and you watch me stand up. And if I can stand up like I just did without my hands or pushing down on something and there's no problem, then that's a point. If I took multiple and I was able to do it the first time, so that's a point, right? And then the next thing is um, you kind of check, you can have them close their eyes next, see how they're able to do. If I close my eyes and I'm steady, I'm I get a point. If not, if I close my eyes and I start to kind of like sway around, then I'm not safe, right? And if I can't do it at all, I start to kind of wobble and fall, that's definitely a zero. Then the next thing you would do is just push them, right? So push me a couple times, and if I'm able to kind of just adjust and come right back to the right position, that's fine. If I really start swaying, then that's 1 point. But if I have to step or I immediately like actually fall, obviously that's going to be a 0-2. Um, and then you look at how they're standing. So have them stand up. If they're standing well and their feet are close together, it's a point, right? And then watch them for like 30 seconds. And if they're still standing well, that's another point. And that's pretty much the whole test, right? And so I'll show you a very rapid version of that, right? So I'm going to pretend I'm the patient and I'm going to be here. I'm going to say, hey, Brent, how are you doing? I'm doing okay. And so what I want you to do is I'm going to have you perform this test really quick. I've already noticed that Brent is sitting well and having no problems with that. So Brent, what I want you to do is just stand up for me. And so I stand up, no help with hands, everything's good. Now what I want you to do is I want you to, um, and then I just watch him for a second. I just want you to stand there. So I'm looking at his feet. I'm looking how far they are apart. I'm looking initially if he's standing well, and then I'm looking to see if he's moving at all after about 30 seconds. And then I give him a push, right? It doesn't matter the order you do it in. Give him some pushes. If they can stay fine, then have them close their eyes for just 5 or 10 seconds. Notice if there's any sway or change in anything. Then have them turn around, right? And sit down and look at their steps. And you can literally do it super, super quick. And I just over talked it, but it's as simple as stand up, watch how they stand up, turn around, okay, push them, have them close their eyes, then have them sit down. Okay, doesn't even matter the order it's in, just have them do all the steps. And if they're struggling with any of those or several of those, you know, hey, their balance isn't very good and that's something we need to work on. If they do great, it's, you know, probably not something you need to work on. And that's all of them. There's one more test that we will look at real quick. There is a gait version of this. It's really straightforward. You can look it out, and you can print these off of the internet if your PT ever asks you to do them. Anyways, their overall score, right, will let you know if you combine the balance and the gait portion, and they're less than a 19, they're at a high risk of fall. If they're if they're a 19 to 24 with these both combined together, they are medium risk, and if they're 25 to 28, they're a low fall risk. Finally, is Berg. Berg is the best. Okay. Having said that, Berg takes a really long time. Um, it's a 15-20 minute test that you have them do, and you can see it just takes a little while, but it's a good test. It's probably the best test. And so if you really want a good feel for where somebody's at, you want to use Berg. But it's pretty straightforward. You just print it out, read the directions, have the patient do these activities, and go through it. So it's not, I'm not even going to go over it because, like I said, it does take a little longer, but it's really straightforward. You don't need to know each phase of any of these. You just have to need to know a general idea, and you need to know how to do one of these quick ones like Romberg or a quick version of Tonetti for a quick assessment type situation. And you just need to know generally like what a functional reach test is. Moving on, just some quick equipment. that will help with balance. If you're working on sitting balance, your therapy balls are excellent. Swiss balls, sometimes they're called that as well. Yoga balls by some people. So, anyways, you can have patients working on sitting balance. Those are really good to sit on. This is a balance pad or Airex pad. There's different names they go by. Balance foam mat. There's several different things. This just makes the surface under this person a little less steady, and so it's a way to progress and make the balance harder without really making it super hard. I used those a lot, and I will show you an example of this um, in a different video. And here's a balance discs, just some plastic balance discs. There's a smoother side and a rougher side. You can choose either way that you want the person to stand on it. The rougher side provides a little bit of grip. The smoother side is a little bit more challenging. Then there are balance boards. These are just a little bit harder, where this is somewhat stable. This is a totally unstable surface, and you work with the patient on moving back and forth or trying to hold it in position. They're called wobble boards. Or then there's a BAPS board. But we have one of these at the school. You can take these different bottom pieces, right, and put them in different spots along the bottom of it, and it will challenge the balance in different directions. There are also adaptations that provide weights. You see here, there's a weight, and one side's weighted to make it even more difficult to balance with. Bosu balls are awesome, right? And so you can use either side of this for balance. The rounded side is a little bit easier to stand on, or you can use it this way with the rounded side down and the flat side up, and that makes it even harder. You can have people stand on them. You can have people. Bosu balls are amazing. You can do tons of exercises with them. You want to try the hardest push-up in the world. Try and do a push-up with the rounded side down and the flat side up, where you grab the edges. You can also use foam rollers in different ways. This kind of shows it. I wouldn't use a full foam roller to try and stand on. That's too difficult and bordering on dangerous. But you can take a half of one and you can turn it upside down and have them kind of use it like a wobble board. Notice how even with that though, they've put another foam roller that's standing up for them to be able to kind of use to help balance themselves. With any of these, like always, make sure that you have them in a belt and that they're helping themselves. So anyways, these are just some different things. This one's super challenging, a bongo board. You can have, there are some slide boards back and forth. This is another version kind of a slide board. You lean back and forth and you slide with it. This is really high level stuff for athletes and things like that, skiers that you're trying to help recover. But these ones up here, anything above this we'll use super commonly to help people, and they kind of go in order, right? So the easiest that you use with somebody who's trying to get stronger in sitting is going to be a Swiss ball, and then this foam mat for people in standing is a nice progression, and then they kind of get harder from there, right? So if you're doing standing and you're trying to make standing harder, this is your first step. This is probably your second step. These are kind of your third step. BAPS board is your fourth step. Bosu ball is very similar to a BAPS board, so you can consider it about the same. Foam rollers, they actually are, they would go about here with the wobble boards, about the same level of difficulty and challenge for them. So if you have any questions over that, I am going to make a video just where I demonstrate kind of a balanced treatment and how you progress that, and I'll have that out here in the next few days. But that's a general overview of balance. If you have any questions, please let me know.